Imagine standing on the sands of ancient Egypt, where the Nile flows lazily in the background, and the air hums with the rhythm of tambourines and sistrums. A group of dancers moves in perfect harmony, their arms arcing gracefully, their feet marking a steady beat. To the Egyptians, dance was not just movement. It was a language, a prayer, and a celebration of life itself. It connected the physical to the spiritual, the individual to the community, and the mortal to the divine. What if I told you that dance wasn't just a form of entertainment in ancient Egypt, but a cornerstone of their existence? It was woven into everything they did: rituals, celebrations, and even funerals. In this video, we'll explore how dance shaped their daily lives, why it held such immense meaning, and what it can teach us today. Let's start with the spiritual aspect. For the ancient Egyptians, life and death were deeply interconnected. They believed in an eternal cycle of rebirth, where death was merely a transition to another existence. Dance played a crucial role in this belief system. At funerals, for example, dancers weren't just performing, they were facilitating the journey of the deceased into the afterlife. Imagine a funeral procession winding through the streets, with musicians playing castanets and tambourines. The dancers, clad in flowing robes, would move in unison, their steps symbolizing the rebirth of the soul. It wasn't just about mourning, it was about ensuring that the deceased would find joy and renewal in the afterlife. Think about that for a moment. How often do we, in our modern lives, use movement or ritual to mark transitions? Whether it's a graduation dance, a wedding celebration, or even the way we sway to music at a party, there's something universal about expressing change through movement. The Egyptians just took it to another level, embedding this practice into the fabric of their existence.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more topics you love.
Now let's move from the tomb to the temple. Religious festivals in ancient Egypt were grand affairs, and dance was always a central part of the celebration. The goddess Hathor, often associated with music, joy, and love, was particularly connected to dance. Her followers would perform with sistrums, rattling them to mimic the sounds of nature, like the rustling of reeds in the wind. But here's where it gets interesting. These dances weren't just for the gods, they were also for the people. Over time, what started as sacred rituals performed by priests and temple dancers evolved into public processions. Entire communities would join in, transforming solemn ceremonies into lively, joyous celebrations. This evolution tells us something profound about human nature. Whether it's connecting to a deity, to each other, or to the rhythm of life itself, dance bridges the gaps between us. Here's a thought-provoking question. In today's world, where we're so often disconnected from each other, from nature, and even from ourselves, how might dance help us reconnect? What's fascinating is that the Egyptians didn't limit dance to temples and funerals. By the time of the Middle Kingdom, dance had become a key part of everyday life. Weddings, harvest festivals, and even casual gatherings often featured dance as a way to express gratitude and joy. Take the famous story of Sinehe, a piece of Middle Kingdom literature. When Sinehe, an Egyptian in exile, was finally allowed to return home, he didn't just walk back into his community, he danced. The story describes him spinning and singing, his joy so immense that it could only be expressed through movement. Can you relate to that feeling? A moment so powerful, so filled with emotion that words aren't enough. That's the essence of what dance meant to the Egyptians. It was a way to embody their emotions, to make the invisible visible. Stay with me, because in the next part, we'll dive into the mechanics of ancient Egyptian dance, the moves, the costumes, and the instruments. You'll see how these elements created an art form that still influences dance today. Let's break down the physicality of Egyptian dance. Unlike modern dance forms, which often emphasized individual expression, ancient Egyptian dance was highly structured. Each movement had a purpose, a meaning. For example, backbends, pirouettes, and even intricate arm movements symbolized cosmic forces, cycles of life, and the connection between heaven and earth. But it wasn't just about the dancers. The instruments played an equally vital role. Sistrums, tambourines, and flutes set the rhythm, while stringed instruments added depth and melody. Imagine a dancer swaying to the beat of a sistrum, her movements perfectly timed to the rattling sound of metal discs. The music wasn't just accompaniment, it was an integral part of the performance. And then there were the costumes. Dancers often wore garments that emphasized their movements. Flowing scarves, hip bands, and anklets that jingled as they moved. Jewelry, especially anklets and bracelets, wasn't just decorative. It added an auditory element to the dance, creating a multi-sensory experience. Even the makeup had a purpose. Kohl-lined eyes weren't just for beauty. They help protect against the sun and symbolize clarity of vision, both physical and spiritual. Here's something to think about. How do the clothes and accessories we wear influence the way we move? Could there be a connection between what we wear and how we express ourselves? One of the most fascinating aspects of ancient Egyptian dance is its influence on modern dance traditions. Scholars have found links between Egyptian movements and Mediterranean dance forms like flamenco and belly dance. Even classical ballet owes some of its techniques, like pirouettes and arabesques, to the legacy of ancient Egyptian dancers. This continuity reminds us that dance is one of humanity's oldest languages. It transcends time, culture, and geography, connecting us to the rhythms of the past. Now, let's take it one step further. Dance wasn't just about entertainment or ritual, it was also a way to preserve stories. In a time before widespread literacy, movement was a form of communication. The steps of a dance could tell a story as vividly as words on a page. Think about how we still use dance to tell stories today. From Broadway musicals to cultural performances, movement remains a powerful way to convey meaning. In the final part of this video, we'll explore the deeper wisdom of ancient Egyptian dance. What can their movements teach us about resilience, community, and living in harmony with the world around us? At its core, dance in ancient Egypt was about balance. Between joy and sorrow, life and death, the physical and the spiritual. The Egyptians believed that movement could align them with the cosmic order, bringing harmony to their lives. This idea of balance is something we often lose in our fast-paced modern world. We're so focused on productivity, on achieving and consuming, that we forget the importance of simply being, of moving for the sake of movement, of celebrating life through our bodies. What if we could bring that balance back? What if, like the Egyptians, we used dance not just as a form of exercise or entertainment, but as a way to connect with ourselves, with others, and with something greater than ourselves? Let's take a moment to reflect on how profound this idea is. For the ancient Egyptians, dance wasn't just an activity, it was life itself. It was how they expressed gratitude, how they worshipped, how they mourned, and how they celebrated. How was it? Dance was woven into the very fabric of their existence, and through it, they found meaning and connection. So, where does that leave us? What can we, in today's world, learn from a civilization that lived thousands of years ago? Let's explore how the lessons of ancient Egyptian dance can inspire us to live more intentional, connected, and joyful lives. First, let's talk about the concept of presence. When we think of ancient Egyptian dancers performing in temples, funeral processions, or public celebrations, one thing stands out. They were fully present in the moment. Every movement, every beat of the sistrum, every sway of the hips carried meaning. There was no room for distraction, no multitasking, no hurried motions. This kind of presence is something many of us struggle with today. How often do we rush through life, caught up in our to-do lists, our screens, or our worries about the future? How often do we truly stop, breathe, and immerse ourselves in the present moment? Here's a challenge. The next time you're feeling overwhelmed, try something radical. Put on music not to distract yourself, but to ground yourself. Let your body move. Even if it's just swaying or tapping your foot, feel the rhythm. Be present in the movement. What happens when you let yourself simply be? Another lesson we can learn from ancient Egyptian dance is the importance of ritual. For them, dance wasn't something they did randomly. It was intentional, tied to specific events, emotions, and purposes. Rituals like the mirror dance or the star dance weren't just performances. They were acts of connection to the cosmos, to the gods, and to each other. In our modern lives, we often dismiss rituals as outdated or unnecessary. But what if we reframe them as tools for grounding and connection? Think about how you could create small rituals in your own life. Movements or practices that mark transitions, honor moments of joy, or help you process grief. For example, imagine starting your day with a simple dance of gratitude. It doesn't have to be elaborate, just a few minutes of moving your body, focusing on what you're thankful for. How might that change the tone of your day? Now, let's look at the idea of community. One of the most beautiful aspects of ancient Egyptian dance is how it brought people together. Whether it was a temple performance, a public festival, or a wedding celebration, dance was a shared experience. It broke down barriers, fostered unity, and reminded people that they were part of something larger. In today's hyper-individualistic world, we often lose sight of the power of community. We prioritize personal achievement, self-expression, and independence, but at what cost? What if we could bring more community into our lives through movement? Maybe it's joining a dance class, starting a tradition of dancing at family gatherings, or simply inviting friends over to move to music together. How might that strengthen your bonds and remind you of the joy of being part of a group? Finally, let's consider legacy. The ancient Egyptians believed that dance could transcend time and space. Through their movements, they connected with ancestors, honored the gods, and ensured that their stories would live on. Even today, thousands of years later, their dances speak to us through the art and texts they left behind. What legacy do you want to leave? Through your own movements, actions, and stories. How do you want to be remembered? Not just in terms of accomplishments, but in how you made others feel, how you expressed yourself, and how you celebrated life. It doesn't have to be grand or complicated. Sometimes it's the smallest gestures that leave the deepest impact. A hand extended in dance, a moment of shared joy, a rhythm that carries through generations. So as we wrap up this journey into the world of ancient Egyptian dance, let me leave you with this thought. Life is a dance. It's full of rhythms, pauses, transitions, and improvisations. How you move through it is up to you. Will you rush through the steps, or will you embrace the rhythm and let it guide you? If there's one thing we can learn from the ancient Egyptians, it's that dance is about more than movement. It's about presence, connection, and meaning. It's about celebrating the highs, honoring the lows, and finding joy in the journey. So go ahead, turn on some music, take a step, and dance. Not for an audience, not for perfection, but for the sheer beauty of being alive. Because if the ancient Egyptians taught us anything, it's that the dance of life is always worth celebrating. If this video inspired you, share it with someone who loves history, movement, or a good story. Let's spread the wisdom of the past and remind ourselves that sometimes the best way to move forward is to dance through it.